Everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Wealth of Nations. I am happy to be here today and to have a discussion with you. Now, today we're going to be deviating slightly from our usual discussions on economics to dive into culture. And I think it is relevant because everything we do in society is interconnected. Our discussions that we have, the debates that we have, and for the first time, this particular television program, ABC Q&A, which is good sometimes, not so good at others. But this episode in particular was the most overt example that I've seen so far of bias, of agenda, of a lack of civility that comes from having one group of people on a panel that all share the same views and no opposition in there at all. And I was appalled by what I heard, and many other people were as well. I personally sent in a complaint on the Q&A to the Q&A episode um, board or whoever manages it. They have a link there where you can voice your concern about things that you saw in the program, and I did that. And apparently many other people did too, because this video has been removed from all the platforms. So I was listening to this in the car because it was being broadcast on ABC News Radio, which I usually listen to, and I could not believe what I was hearing. There was sexism, there was racism, and open calls or justifications for violence. And on this episode, there was no counterbalance. Even the host seemed to approve of most of these things. And the vulgarity on the show was quite surprising. I couldn't believe my ears. There seems to be this concept that people feel that if your language is harsh, rude, cruel, or forceful, that somehow that message will carry further. And I personally do not agree. I found it offensive, I found it disrespectful, and while there was one effort by the host to pull up the particular panelist, not much of an effort was made after that. And the vulgarity continued, and I just couldn't believe my ears. We had host Fran Kelly, and we had a panel here of feminists from different avenues, and it seemed to be, of course, almost, a few people on the panel anyway, had a book to sell. And they were constantly plugging in their books. And the reason I want to talk about this today is because when we're discussing, having debates, when we are trying to find the best way forward in society, democracies, in Western democracies especially, we get together, we discuss these things, we debate. Sometimes things get out of hand, things get disrespectful. But for the most part, I think in society, what we do is we get together, we talk, we discuss, we debate, and we find the best way forward. And we do that by bringing in a range of people with varying ideas. And that's usually what happens in Q&A, but that did not happen this night, and I'm not sure why. But anyway, it is what it is. So we have SBS News here reporting on ABC announcing that they'll do a probe into the feminist Q&A episode after audience complaints. And the audience has every right to complain. Why? Because they are paying for this programming. This is a taxpayer-funded program, and, in my view, they did not deliver quality programming, quality content to the people of Australia. And unfortunately, it seems to me that there was a lot of praise on Twitter, because they always have the Twitter responses up on the screen. This particular person, Kashira Duskall, is pleased that there's no politicians and that it's going to be a great night. So let's have a look here. Now, one question was asked. Barack Obama was brought into this because they talked about how Barack Obama was criticized the idea of wokeness and cancel culture. And the panel did not seem to agree with him. I think the worst culprit of the night was the Egyptian American writer Mona Elta Highway. Hope I pronounced that correctly. She was very, very critical of men, of society, And I find it interesting because she's from Egypt, but she said that she spends her time between Canada and the USA. And she has much criticism for the West, a West that has embraced her, that has helped her to get to where she is today. And I just find it strange, and I find it a breakdown of civil society that is essential if we are going to move forward peacefully. And I think a lot of this flies in the face of our ideas of multiculturalism, our ideas of being one people, despite our many differences, whether we're male, female, um, from whatever background that we come from. The way we communicate and the way we talk is something that can bring us together. But episodes like Q&A last week just throw the whole thing out the window. So the ABC managing director David Anderson acknowledges and said that the panel wanted to present challenging ideas from high-profile feminists. Now, sometimes it's in the manner in which we present our ideas that makes a difference. And I don't think the panel was successful on this night. Let's see if we can see this. This is an example of Mona.
No, I find it really fascinating that we've heard about so many instances of male violence against women, that real incidents, whether it's
Okay, so Mona wants the patriarchy to fear feminism. She says, "How long must we wait for men and boys to stop murdering us, to stop beating us, and to stop raping us? How many rapists must we kill until men stop raping us?" She continued. And then the host jumped in and says, "Fighting words." And then there was Miss Gory who added, "I think violence is okay because if someone is trying to kill you, there's no amount of I'm really clever, I'm really articulate, no amount of that will save you. Let's burn stuff," she said. Now Q&A posted another video, it looks like, saying that she doesn't agree with the use of violence, or that Miss Asafiri doesn't agree with violence. She says, "I wanted us to engage in a different conversation where our intelligence and wisdom could elevate the conversation and we could lead on progressing a different conversation." Okay, well that didn't really happen on the Q&A panel, but let's see here.
Hi, my name's Hannah Safiri. I was on a Q&A, all women's panel on Monday night, a panel that came together to discuss the epidemic of violence towards women. I felt I didn't have the opportunity to convey my point of view, in particular around two issues that I feel strongly about: violence and the place of men. In relation to violence, I'm somebody who has lived through violence. I've experienced personal violence. I've lived in wars and sectarian violence. Violence is never a go-to position for me. Violence begets violence, and it becomes a slippery slope cycle which ultimately almost always affects the most vulnerable and the weaker in those circumstances. I wanted us to engage a different conversation where our intelligence and wisdom could elevate the conversation and we can lead on progressing a different conversation. My other issue on Q&A that I didn't have the opportunity to contribute to is on men. I'm a mother of two boys, and I have brothers, and I have a father, and we all have cousins and uncles and grandparents. The role of men is not to fear women. I don't want men to fear women, nor do I want women to fear men and be intimidated by them. I want us to work towards a different and imagine a different and more harmonious world. These are my views. The role of men is as important in walking with women who can change the conversation. These are views I have worked tirelessly my entire life about, and these are views I wish I had the opportunity to express on Q&A. As I believe, as an Australian Muslim woman feminist, who doesn't get these opportunities often, this is an opinion that I just wanted to express. Thank you so much for the opportunity to listen again.
Well done, Asafiri. So that was reasonable, measured, and if she had the chance, if she had the opportunity to make her voice known, if the conversation wasn't dominated by the radicals, in my view, that would have balanced things out. There would have been a challenge and some opposition there that people could have considered. They could have taken a step back and said, hold on now. Let's be fair to men in society. Let's be fair to the conversation. And I appreciate that she posted that because I think it's something that was missing on the episode that made it very undesirable to watch. So thank you for that, Asafiri. That was really good. Okay, so here we go. Now, Mona, instead of reflecting on things, instead of considering her positions, she says this. This was my third time on Q&A, and I've become accustomed to the hysteria of misogynists in Australia. She continued, I speak all over the world, and of course I get trolled and I get hatred, but there's something uniquely Australian about the way misogynists in this country respond to me, especially when I appear on Q&A. Mona, 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 Mona. So she goes on, and rather than considering her positions, she goes on to basically blame men, and misogynists in particular, whoever they may be, for her behavior, which is totally unacceptable. This is a person who is not rational, who is not considerate, a person who encourages her readers to commit sin. And if there is any religious blood in her bones, I think any religious person should be offended at the consideration that a person or women should take to consider sinning. But anyway, so she was the one that received language warnings. She used the F word numerous times. And the ABC does have a policy. It does not bar coarse language, but dictates that it must form a legitimate part of reportage, debate, documentaries, or humorous, satirical, dramatic, or other artistic work. And I think her language does not suit that category at all. And that's the way it is. So ABC is considering this. They've considered what's going into it. There's going to be a probe into it. And it needs to happen because I think the public broadcaster needs to be held responsible. And these questions, these panelists are set up. They know what the outcome's going to be. They know the views of these feminists. And I just wonder, did they actually get paid to be on the show? And Australians everywhere need to consider, is this suitable programming for a public broadcaster? And I don't think that it is. It can't be. It's a sign to me that we are going further down hill. We're going further down into the gutter, and we are not engaging in adequate discussion, debate, and dialogue that is going to take us forward and move us forward without having more conflict, more controversy, more troubles between society and individuals in society. And I'm glad the ABC has taken responsibility for this. Mona, I don't know if she will reflect on this and reconsider, because I think she obviously thinks that any complaint to Q&A is going to be coming from men who might be misogynists or who might be against feminism. I don't know what the case may be. But I suppose the best challenge for people like that is to have a person on that panel to say, you know what, Mona? Let's take a step back here. I challenge you on your views. Here is my side of the story. And when you let those things come to light, you have balance to the discussion so that we can actually make an informed and considered decision. And the panelist who is unable to share their views, stand up. Take the opportunity when it comes. Don't back down to those who are um, more aggressive and dominant in the conversation, because we have to hear those voices of moderation, those voices that help us to stop and consider, hold on, what is the reality here? What are we dealing with? And I think when we have that, we have better debate, we have better discussions in society, and we can probably find solutions better. So I just wanted to talk about this today. It was something that was quite shocking for me because I've never seen anything like this so overt in bias and agenda, particularly from a public broadcaster. So I hope everyone will consider this Q&A discussion. Consider how we can have better debates and discussions in the future, whether it be on topics of economics, civility, politics, whatever the case may be. Because if we're going to have a robust economy, we have to have people who, and a wealthy nations, as this channel is devoted to, we have to have wealth of conversations, wealth of debates. We have to have robust discussions and dialogue, because if we can't cooperate with each other, if we can't communicate with each other effectively, if we can't cooperate, we will never get anything done. It'll be impossible. And if there is a divide between men and women in particular, which I think shows like this create, men and women won't be able to communicate and work together. Because everything that we do in society is a team effort. It is a cooperative effort. And unfortunately, how these feminist panelists make their money is through their ideas. Some of them will be good, some of them will be wholly inappropriate, as we saw on the Q&A episode. So have a look at it. I'll post a link in the description. You can have a look at the Q&A episode yourself and decide what you think. And hopefully on this channel, we can have more debates and discussions. We can ask questions, we can bring things forward, have a debate, and discuss. And hopefully find the best way forward for the future of nations. Thanks very much, and I will talk to you soon.